One day, while on Interstate 5, I finally felt back home. The smell of firs, oaks, and pines wafting through the open road. There was nothing quite like it. It had been years since I had been back in the area, but those feelings, they never left. The smell, the look, and feel of a place, something you can never truly forget. Coming from a small town, this all felt like a new world. Being from the country is one thing, but this was something different, something new you couldn't get from the Bayou State. As I traveled down the road through Siskiyou County, it all felt surreal. Towering pines overlooking crystal blue waters, roads curved through the sprawling valleys as far as the eye can see. And out of the corner of my eye, an eagle soars into the frame, almost as if it knew it was needed to complete the portrait. But the beauty of this place isn't limited to just what you can see above, but also the many things you can do from below. Whether you wanted to spend the day fishing, disappear into the woods, or test yourself against the summit, there was always something waiting for you. But the more you spend time on the mountain, the more you begin to hear stories of grief, loss, and questions that have never been answered. Things that any other time would keep you away. But something about this place just refuses to let go. So turn down the lights. Get comfortable. And join me as we uncover the mystery of the mountain that calls. Welcome to the Book of Lore. Mountains are a visual reminder of the past. Every crack, break, or fracture tells a story. Similar to the stone tape theory found in paranormal research, the mountain holds secrets long forgotten. The belief that walls and other structures can hold onto things thought to be long gone, recording emotion and energy from encounters long ago. But what if the secret that was being held wasn't a metaphor? What if the secret being held was something far more real? In 1904, a British prospector named J.C. Brown was working for the Lord Caldry Mining Company looking for gold when he discovered a tunnel. Unsure of what he'd find, he lit his lantern, said a prayer, and began the trek into the dark cavern. Feeling his way around, he'd periodically stop to find treasures strewn about, like pieces of gold and silver. But the deeper he walked, the stranger the tunnel became. Strange carvings, weird artifacts, but none were more frightening than what he saw next. Walls lined with giant mummies, stretching the remainder of the tunnel as far as the eye can see. Some even eclipsing 10 feet tall. But he stilled his resolve, forcing himself to proceed down the path. He continued along the never-ending route until what he saw next changed everything he thought he knew about the world. Stepping out of the dark tunnel, it was almost as if he stepped into a new world. Large buildings, ornate structures. This wasn't a place slapped together and rushed. This place felt ancient, lived in, almost as if it's been here, waiting. For 30 years, JC kept it secret, unsure if anyone would even believe him or think him crazy for even saying it out loud. But eventually, he couldn't hold it in any longer when he told his friend John C. Root all about what he'd found. Intrigued, Root put together an expedition to travel down to the lost city. But on the day, Brown was nowhere to be found, never to be heard from again. And the town that Brown found would later be known as Telos. Known as the City of Light, this underground dwelling held the remnants of a culture in near collapse who believed that one day their land would rise to the surface and uphold the laws of the fifth dimension. Founded by an ancient race of beings known as Lemurians a little over 12,000 years ago, they needed to find a home. Already having the knowledge that their continent was destined to be destroyed, they came up with a plan. They hollowed out a place to preserve their culture, treasures, and last records of history. History lost to the world since the sinking of Atlantis. Their continent, Lemuria, was one of great importance, if the Lemurians are to be believed. Said to have been larger than North America and connected to parts of the Pacific Northwest, it held secrets from a world long ago. One morning they woke up to their world gone, dropped into the ocean, disappearing through the night. But after it was all said and done, the 25,000 survivors migrated to their new home, burrowed 11 miles deep within Mount Shasta. And that is when the real work began, restoring the life they once had, building new infrastructure, re-establishing governmental hierarchy, with the surviving civilization said to have grown to upwards of 1.5 million citizens alive and well today. First reported in 1864, there were rumblings of a new and forgotten continent buried deep beneath the Pacific Ocean named Lemuria. Theorized to explain the presence of lemur bones in Madagascar and India, but not Africa or the Middle East. It was believed that the sunken land was the bridge between the two continents. The theory was later expanded upon by biologist Ernst Haeckel, believing this mysterious land to be the ancestral home of all humans, before being debunked by later scientific findings. But people still had questions. Around the early 18th century, accounts of strange lights appearing around the mountain became widely reported. Tales of glowing orbs, flying triangles, and discs turned this once quiet and ethereal place into the paranormal hotspot it's become today. By this time, the idea of Telos and the fall of Lemuria were known to locals, leaving many to think them responsible. But while this was going on, stories from the indigenous Wintu tribe who lived on the mountain began making their rounds. And according to them, the mountain was home to many races of people until one day a flood ravaged the mountain, leaving only three: the Minhune, the Mu, and the Wa. But tragedy didn't stop there. To avoid being captured and destroyed, two races left the mountain, leaving only one, the Minhune. Because the Wintu didn't believe the Minhune to be like you and I. They were believed to be something else. Something more. The Wintu believed them to be a race of invisible people living on the mountain who wanted to keep their existence hidden. It was said that the lights that appear around the mountain of the many-human participating in their nightly habits and rituals. Though some see these as invitations, they're actually the opposite. The many-human are a solitary people with a very simple philosophy. Be kind to them and they'll reward you. But if you aren't, you could just as easily see yourself turn to stone. The stories of the mountain's capabilities are endless. Tales of strange lights and hidden cities. But the pull of the mountain for many isn't the paranormal trappings surrounding it or the stories of the unexplained. It's a feeling. Something that calls you, heals you, and ultimately grounds you. People travel the world far and wide looking for a release, a way to feel closer to God, good energy, or whatever part of themselves feels empty. And that is why people flock to the mountain. Because to them, Mount Shasta isn't just a place to go recreate outdoors. To them, it's one of the very few places on earth that fills their souls with energy, healing, light. Those who believe in the mountain's spiritual power often describe it as containing different pockets of energy, places associated with healing, others with clarity and insight. Some said to transform those who visit, and a few where people report feeling connected to something larger than themselves. But whatever the explanation, the stories all seem to point toward the same conclusion. Nobody leaves Mount Shasta quite the same as they arrived. The mountain's home to plenty of supernatural and unexplained occurrences. Strobe lights at the break of dawn, tales of hidden cities, lost continents, and invisible people. But there is one unfortunate phenomenon surrounding the mountain. Something that haunts those familiar to this day. A dark stain the mountain will never be able to wipe clean. Unsuspecting visitors drawn to the forested oasis who walk in and never leave. With the toughest part of it all being that most of the time, there are no traces left to find out what happened. Some are believed to have been met with foul play. Others seem to have lost the battle, letting the elements take hold. Each case seemingly asking more questions than the last. And with minimal answers given, we have to begin to wonder if the answer is something we've yet to understand. Because with at least 11 unsolved disappearances dating back to 1965, it's easy to understand why some believe the mountain is hiding something. Most of those cases eventually fade from public memory, but one never truly did. Because despite one of the largest searches in the mountain's history, Carl Landers was never found. An avid outdoorsman, Carl didn't know the meaning of sit down. At 69, he prided himself on staying active, always looking to conquer the next new thing. His passion for fitness was rivaled only by his love for mountaineering, with a personal goal to summit the highest peak in every California county. Which is why this story is remembered. Not for any of the wild thoughts or conspiracies surrounding it, but because at the end of the day, no matter the cause, his last known act on this earth was doing something he loved. On the morning of May 21st, 1999, Carl Landers and his two friends, Milton Milt Gaines and Barry Gilmore, set out to summit Mount Shasta. beginning a new quest to mark another summit from his list. The group made their way through the mountain, trudging through deep pockets of snow. Realizing they were losing daylight, the trio decided to make camp on the 50-50 plateau. They were lying in their tents when Carl began to feel unwell. Suffering through the night, he decided to wake up early and get a head start on the summit, heading down to Lake Helen. Milton woke up and realized that Carl was gone, so he got dressed and headed after him. Carl knew the plan and suspected he knew where he was heading, so he went that way. He continued down the path looking for his friend when he came upon a climber. He asked if he'd seen anyone heading that way, and he said he hadn't. And beginning to feel uneasy, Milt thanked the climber and continued on his way. Arriving at the lake, Milt searched the area high and low looking for his friend, but to his dismay, he was nowhere to be found. He went back to camp where he found Barry to be awake and explained him the situation, ultimately deciding to call the authorities. The Siskiyou County Sheriff's Department launched an extensive search and rescue mission with over 50 volunteers, a National Guard helicopter, and teams from the U.S. Forest Service and professional private rescue personnel. But, despite the scale of the operation, no trace of the Orienda man was ever found. No items, no prints, no clues. A man lost in time. And for over 2 decades, the mystery continues. Because sometimes, the mountain has the final say. But let's not forget that underneath all of the stories, there's still something very real standing before us. A mountain. One that has watched generations come and go. One that has witnessed stories we'll never hear. And perhaps inspired stories we'll never fully understand. Because whether you believe Mount Shasta is home to ancient civilizations, spiritual energy, or nothing unusual at all, one thing becomes difficult to ignore: the effect it has on people who visit. For some, it's a place of mystery. For others, a place of healing. And for many, a place that never truly leaves them. And maybe that's why so many people return. Why so many feel drawn back. Why so many describe the mountain as if it were alive, calling them home. And maybe that's where the real mystery begins. Because whether the mountain is calling to something beyond us or simply something within us, people have been answering for generations. So, as we close this entry of the Book of Lore, I'm Juwan Lede. And until next week, stay safe and keep turning the page. Before we close this entry, I'd like to hear from you. Every town has its stories. A haunted road nobody drives after dark, a local legend passed down for generations, an encounter someone swears really happened. If there's a legend from your hometown, a strange experience you've lived through, or a story you'd like to see explored in a future entry of the Book of Lore, send it my way. Some stories refuse to stay buried. Yours might become the subject of a future entry. So until next time. keep turning the pages. New episodes of the Book of Lore release every Tuesday. Please rate, follow, and review. It greatly helps the show. Have any other lovers of lore in your life? Share with your friends, family, and loved ones to help the show become a place for lovers of the spooky, mythical, and creepy to come together. You can follow the show on Instagram, TikTok, and Threads at Book of Lore Pod. Have a great week, and thanks for listening.